Okay, everybody, my name is Lowell, and welcome to the channel. So we've got a reaction video. This is going to be the 10 greatest archaeological discoveries ever. Now, I love history. I do watch Time Team all the time. If you haven't seen that, it's an English show. Definitely worth the watch. It is fantastic. So let's jump in and let's have a look at this one.
Finally, they hoped, there could be evidence of the historic Jesus.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 archaeological discoveries.
As a result, the angle of the hip looks nothing like a chimp's, but a lot like ours.
I thought that one would be on the list for sure. That is such a huge find in China.
Scale is unprecedented. And now, some say they have found it.
For this list, we're looking at the most incredible discoveries archaeologists have ever made. We're excluding things that weren't discovered because they were never lost in the first place, like the Great Pyramids or Machu Picchu. Those are great sites, but local people have always known they were there. Let us know in the comments below which discovery you found most interesting. Number 10. Tutankhamun's tomb.
Tutankhamun's burial chamber is filled with magical decoration. But beside it, the rest of the tomb is left bare. This simple tomb is unlike any other royal tomb in the valley.
The Valley of the Kings is the final resting place of many ancient Egyptian pharaohs, but throughout its history, a number of tombs have fallen victim to grave robbers.
This is the Egyptian red list of the missing pieces. We are already missing from museums and sites and everywhere in Egypt, and we give it to Interpol to stop any piece of them if they're moving from a country to a country.
Tutankhamun's tomb was different. Remarkably, though grave robbers did break in shortly after it was initially sealed up, most of its contents were intact when archaeologists found it in 1922.
Over 5,000 priceless artifacts, including golden statues. In the burial chamber, the pharaoh's mummy, wearing a golden death mask, was placed.
I think everybody has seen this this one. You know, obviously, what comes with it. You know, the curse and everything else, and you know, it's probably inspired quite a few movies as well. But okay, good way to start.
Inside a coffin made of more than 200 pounds of solid gold.
Today, Tutankhamun's gilded mask makes him arguably the most famous and recognizable pharaoh in history. Considering Tutankhamun only reigned for about 10 years and died between the young ages of 18 and 19, that is quite the legacy.
This modest tomb was jammed full of all the royal possessions that were usually buried with a king.
It can't have been meant to be all jumbled up like that. People are just trying to cram as much stuff as possible.
Along with the mask, the tomb also contained a statue of Anubis, the god of the dead, and a dagger made from a fallen meteor. Number 9, the Antikythera mechanism.
If it hadn't been discovered when it was in 1901.
I think they call this like the first computer. There's a lot of things that people have been saying what it is and stuff. I think they actually made a replica of it as well, too, if I believe.
No one would possibly believe that it could exist
computer
because it's so sophisticated.
This mysterious object was found submerged in Grecian waters at the turn of the 20th century, located inside an ancient shipwreck. The strange device was already 2,000 years old when it was found, and despite being eroded by the sea for all that time, it was still eventually identified as the
I mean, look at it. It's got cogs and everything on it. That's
world's oldest computer. Finally, another century after its discovery, and we now know definitively what it did. It was a device used to chart the positions of celestial bodies so that the ancient Greeks knew when eclipses would happen.
Some have argued that it's so complex, the Greeks couldn't have made it at all. There are even some who say it must have been created by aliens.
It took a 3D reconstruction of the entire device in 2021 to get a better understanding of how it worked, though its purpose was suspected for decades. Number 8, Lascaux. In 1940, a young man stumbled across the entrance to a 17,000-year-old cave system in the south of France, all thanks to his dog.
On this day, he had gone after his dog, who had chased a fox or a rabbit, when he kicked a stone with his foot, and it tumbled down into this little hole and made an echo that brought everyone running.
Lascaux Cave was quickly excavated and was found to contain hundreds of cave paintings depicting the fauna that lived in rural France thousands.
I mean, look at that. That's pretty good painting as well, too. Dang. I mean, that could have been hidden for a lot more time, but man, just that's accidentally kicking a rock.
Of years ago. It was one of the most incredible collections of cave paintings ever unearthed, but not the only one. In neighboring Spain, the cave of Altamira was found between the late 1870s and early 1880s, and boasted cave paintings even older than the ones in Lascaux, with some dating back 36,000 years.
The original cave has been closed to preserve its archaeologically important remains. In its place, a precise replica has been recreated inside this museum.
Both Lascaux and Altamira are major UNESCO sites in France and Spain, respectively. Number 7. Lucy. When this skeleton was discovered in Ethiopia in 1974, it completely changed everything we thought we knew about human evolution.
When you look at it as a whole, there's an amalgam of more primitive and more derived features that had not been seen before.
The skeleton was dubbed Lucy because the team of scientists who found it happened to be listening to Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds during the excavation. Despite this conventional name, Lucy was part of a newly described species at the time, Australopithecus afarensis, and was over 3.2 million years old. The significance of the discovery has made Lucy an important part of modern Ethiopian culture.
Lucy became an almost instant celebrity in anthropological circles. She didn't look like anything we had ever found before. She was something very different. And because of that, she opened up for us an entire new chapter on human origins.
3 million. Dang.
50 years earlier, another fossil from a closely related species, Australopithecus africanus, was found in South Africa, a skull dubbed the Tong Child.
Today, millions of years after the small hominid child met his end, its amazing fossil continues to play a crucial role in our understanding of human evolution.
Number 6. Troy. For centuries, historians debated not only whether the Trojan War actually happened, but also whether the lost city of Troy ever existed at all.
It's a story that's been told and retold by poets and actors for thousands of years. But is it real? Did the city of Troy actually exist?
The Trojan War is the focus of one of ancient Greece's most famous epic poems, Homer's Iliad, and legendary Greek heroes like Achilles and Odysseus fought in it. But Troy's location became lost knowledge. Throughout the 1800s, many researchers argued that Hisarlik, a site in western Turkey, was probably the elusive city.
Throughout the 20th century, scholars have become aware that we can't even be sure that Troy is indeed this Troy.
Finally, after decades of debate, experts came to a consensus that yes, Hisarlik is in all likelihood Troy. Unfortunately, we've yet to find conclusive evidence that the Trojan horse existed. But Troy's identification was hugely important for historians.
The idea that the Greeks would have in fact built a large wooden horse, hidden inside it and had it dragged inside of Troy is certainly possible. But it kind of strains your credulity a little bit that someone really could have pulled that off.
Number 5. Sutton Hoo. One of the most remarkable medieval graves anywhere in Europe was excavated in England in 1939.
Well, I'd say it's the biggest archaeological discovery ever made in this country. So it is an immense responsibility to look after the site, but also really what we're trying to do at Sutton Hoo is tell more people about it.
The owner of an estate in Suffolk, Edith Pretty, enlisted some archaeologists to find out what was underneath the burial mounds on her property. What they uncovered was astounding. So much so that the story inspired a 2021 film, The Dig.
That's a ship.
How do you mean a ship?
Well, that's a ship that's been buried in the mound.
Why would anyone?
And of course, one of the most famous finds there is the Sutton Hoo helmet. Time Team has dug there as well too. I think just this year, actually, the start of the year. Very, as he said, you know, one of the most important sites in Britain.
Want to bury a ship?
What do I expect?
because that's a grave.
The most promising mound contained an entire long ship and innumerable artifacts, including pieces of armor made of gold and other Anglo-Saxon relics. Though it's one of the UK's most impressive archaeological discoveries, it's still not entirely clear whose grave it actually is.
Shortly after the inquest, which ruled that all the items found in the Sutton Hoo burial mound lawfully belonged to Edith Pretty, Pretty donated the entire collection to the British Museum. It's among the most valuable donations of its kind, and the collection itself remains at the heart of the museum.
Most evidence suggests it was the final resting place of a famous East Anglian king, Redwald, who ruled the region around 1400 years ago. Number 4. The Terracotta Army. This is one of the most significant archaeological finds of all time, and it was discovered completely by accident.
And they find some pieces of the pottery. They also find the head of the Terracotta warriors, and the archaeological team came to this area and they start to dig.
The Terracotta Army was first uncovered in the Shanxi province of western China by a group of farmers in the 1970s. The army resides within a tomb constructed over 2,200 years ago as the resting place of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China, which is why it's so elaborate.
He was its first emperor, and his empire became his fortress, protected by a great wall. The legend says he was a tyrant, driven mad by power.
In the parts we've been able to excavate, there are over 8,000 soldiers made out of clay, there to guard Emperor Qin in the afterlife.
Row upon row of warriors.
Imagine first coming upon that, it'd be like, oh my God, look at this. I mean, they actually look like real people standing there.
Hundreds of secret subterranean soldiers, all life-sized and built to be immortal.
But even more astonishing is the fact that the entire necropolis is believed to be almost 40 square miles in size, with most of the site hidden in vaults that aren't yet accessible. Number 3. The Dead Sea Scrolls. Written mostly in Hebrew, the Dead Sea Scrolls are some of the oldest Abrahamic religious texts in existence.
It's funny how, because this one is obviously found again, by accident by a kid searching a cave. It's funny how many discoveries have been by accident, kicking a rock, finding a piece of pottery or something like that. It's amazing what else could be out there, undiscovered at the moment, so it's amazing. Amazing what could be out there.
A young shepherd is herding goats in Qumran near the Dead Sea. Passing a cave, he throws a stone to scare a wayward animal back to the flock, and hears something shatter. Curious, he enters the cavern and discovers 10 clay jars holding 7 ancient scrolls.
They were discovered in a cave in the West Bank in the mid-1940s, but in the decades since, we've continually found more and more scrolls ready to be translated in a handful of additional caves.
The scrolls themselves talk of the battles of the great teacher of righteousness who led the community into the wilderness with the teacher of lies.
The scrolls are so significant because they've allowed historians and theologians to chart the development of the Bible much more accurately, and provided new information about the dawn of Christianity thousands of years ago, as well as the history of Judaism and the Holy Land.
Now we're becoming much more attuned to how very Jewish Jesus was. Very devout Jew, and that's the heart of Christianity.
They are unquantifiably important, and still have a lot to teach us.
There's really no way of predicting what the next discovery is going to be or what it's going to come from. I think it's fairly reasonable to guess there will be something. Surely there will be something.
Number 2, the Rosetta Stone.
Yeah.
For centuries, archaeologists had absolutely no idea how to decipher ancient Egypt's complex hieroglyphics.
Jean-Francois Champollion in France and Thomas Young in Britain both believed that the Rosetta Stone, as it was called, held the key to deciphering hieroglyphs. But the Rosetta Stone did not yield its secrets easily.
Without a starting point, they were unable to understand the inscriptions on Egyptian monuments and artifacts. But that all changed with the discovery of the long-lost Rosetta Stone in 1799, an enormous slab of stone inscribed with everything needed to start translating.
This seemingly insignificant rock
would forever change our understanding of...
I mean, obviously most of us have heard of the Rosetta Stone. Just what was going through somebody's head when they proposed this? You know what? Let's put this stone out there. Let's put this down so whoever finds this can actually read what we're doing. Just that kind of forward thinking about, kind of putting it out there like a, how-to manuscript. That's amazing. Amazing. A, we found it. A, we were able to read it as well. But actually somebody went and actually did it on purpose as well.
Of mankind's past.
The text it contained wasn't actually all that interesting, but the same passage was written 3 times in different languages, and one of those languages was Ancient Greek.
The Greek section told of the tablet having the same information written in all 3. While Greek was easily understood, several obstacles stood in the way of using it to translate the 2 Egyptian scripts.
By using the Greek, which is still widely understood by researchers, we were able to decipher the hieroglyphics and unlock the secrets of ancient Egyptian writing. Before we unveil our top pick, here are some honorable mentions. Ötzi the Iceman. In 1991, Ötzi's body was found naturally mummified in the Alps 5,300 years after he died. The Library of Ashurbanipal. These clay tablets were found in the 50s and contain the oldest extant work of literature.
Wow.
Knossos. This palace is over 3,000 years old and was the hub of Crete's ancient Minoan civilization.
This was an incredible structure and befitting one of the most powerful kings of the Bronze Age. It's built with no expense spared.
Richard III's grave. A parking lot in England was found to be the final resting place of Richard III in 2012.
And for almost 530 years, this is where he lay, downtown Leicester.
Imagine not even knowing that he was there. It's like, obviously nobody said anything. It's like, dang.
In a car park with people driving over him, parking on him, dripping oil from their motors over the last resting place of the monarch.
The Madaba map, the oldest surviving map of the Holy Land. This floor mosaic was excavated in the 1880s.
Wow, look at that. Dang. So, I wonder what's going to be number 1. Because all the big ones I thought of have already been spoken about. So, it's going to be interesting to see what number 1 is here.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Pompeii.
Pompeii.
Among the most famous ruins in the world, Pompeii was destroyed by a devastating...
I mean, you can understand that Pompeii is obviously very famous. They have continuing to discover more and more stuff there as well too. So, and have obviously all those plaster casts of all the past residents there as well too. Some of the buildings they found, the frescoes and everything on the buildings and the graffiti and everything. Okay, I can understand why Pompeii would be number 1. Okay.
Eruption from Mount Vesuvius in the year 79 AD. The village was left forgotten until the 16th century, over 1,500 years later, because it had been completely buried underneath volcanic ash.
It took just 18 hours for Pompeii to be buried under millions of tons of volcanic ash and pumice. An entire living city wiped out.
But that ash kept Pompeii largely intact when it was finally excavated, with people frozen in place where they died during the disaster.
The point is we have a great opportunity here because we have a snapshot of the society. We might have slaves, we might have upper class people, and we can find out if there have been big differences.
Today, it's one of Italy's most popular tourist attractions and a tremendous source of Roman history. As tragic as the story is, Pompeii has taught us more about Roman life than many other ancient archaeology sites anywhere in the world.
Pompeii has regained its pride and continues to share its stories with people.
Man, they really had, that was really kept pristine almost. I mean, some of the buildings have even loaves of bread. You can tell what loaves of bread they have, even still in the oven. It's ridiculous.
All around the world.
Amazing.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this
That
other
was
recent
pretty
clip
good.
from Watch Mojo. And be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.
So, no real. I mean, if you like history, there's probably no real big surprises in that one. The map, I haven't seen that. The mosaic floor. I'm gonna have to have a little read up about that. I haven't seen that one before, but I can understand why Pompeii was number one. The amount of information from that dig site has just been phenomenal. Obviously another standout one is obviously the Chinese emperor as well, too. The terracotta warriors, just amazing. I mean, you can imagine opening that up for the first time. Same with Tutankhamun as well. And as I said, most of these discoveries were all by accident. Throwing a rock into a cave, finding a piece of pottery and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, there's a lot more out there that hasn't been discovered. It's just an amazing history waiting there to be tapped into. And I'm sure over the next, 50, however many years, we'll learn a lot more. So let me know what you thought of that one, guys. That was a very interesting video. I really like that. Really like that. So thank you very much for joining us today. Make sure you stay safe, and I will definitely see you in the next reaction video. Oh, you're still here? You want more content? Why don't you check out my Patreon down here? You'll get plenty more content and some exclusive videos over there too. If not, why not check out this one over here?